The sales ledger control with your tutor, a practice question in this TV Barbados series. So this is our practice question, Mr. Best, and we're asked to prepare the sales ledger and the purchase ledger control. But for this session, we are only going to do the sales ledger control. All right? So let's set up for that. Okay, to do the sales ledger control, step number 1 would be to start with the debtor's balance brought forward. Now, if the question has two balances brought forward and two balances closing it off, right, carried down, then the larger of the two balances, whether at the beginning or the end, are the main balances we are to be using. Because for instance, this balance here of 2,550 and this balance of 900 suggests that some adjustments were made to perhaps the individual debtors' accounts, but were not transferred to the general ledger or vice versa. So there could be things like they returned goods or they had paid in advance or something of that nature. So we're going to have to make adjustments. So if it's at the beginning, we take it away. If it's at the end, we add it on. All right? So let's proceed. We're going to start with the debtor's balance brought forward, the larger one. Good. The second step would be to find all the items that will cause this debtor's balance to increase. In other words, what will cause that 26,650 to increase? So when we look through the balances shown here, we see we have credit sales. That means that the customers bought more goods, so therefore that will increase the balance. We also see that interest was charged on some of the debtors because obviously they were not paying, so you charge them some interest, which means you're increasing the balance. We also see that there are some dishonored checks, meaning that customers wrote you checks saying that they're paying you, but when the bank responded to you, it says, well, these people don't have any money. So clearly they didn't pay you. So you're going to have to restore the balance the way it was. So that will increase the figure. And as I said, this sales balance here of 900 would suggest that some customers also had some adjustments, but they were not as yet passed through the double entry system. So if they were taken off, we're going to have to add them back. All right? So the carry down balance will be added back. And as I said, the brought forward balance would be taken away. So let's add back the carry down balance. All right? So we have all those pieces in. And now we go to step number 3, which is to find out all the items that will cause the balance to decrease. Okay, so we look at the ones that will cause it to increase just now. Now we want the ones that will cause the balance to decrease. And we're going to take them away. So what will cause the debtor's balance to decrease? Well, if the debtors pay you some money, so the receipts from the customers, that will decrease the balance. Also, if the debtors had been allowed a discount, so discounts allowed, or if they had returned some of the goods, all right, or also if some of those debts were written off because you did not expect that these people are going to pay you, so you have bad debts written off. Of course, we know there's another item, I don't say it here, but that other item is called a contra entry or a set off, where between the debtor and the supplier, maybe they trade with each other and agree to cancel out a debt. But it's not in this question, so only the ones that we just identified are the ones we're going to include in our answer. So there we have it, all the balances, including the Remember the brought forward adjustment on the sales ledger of the 2,250. Good. So now that I have both of that, let's put in the last step, which is to subtract the decreases from the increases. All right. So in other words, we can take away all the total of the amount that decreased the balance from the increase in the balance. All right. So we're taking away the 419,950 from the 630,800, and that gives us 210,550 as the amount owed by the debtors at the end of December 31st, 2010. Now, if you've done the question the horizontal way, then your answer would look like this. So remember, when you're doing it horizontally, you got to keep in mind that because debtors are current assets, if an asset increase, you will have to debit. So all the increases to that balance will be on the debit side, and all the decreases of that balance will be on the credit side, because when assets decrease, you credit. However, you should still get the same balance that we got using the other method of 210,550. So whichever method you choose, you should get the same balance. All right. So there you have it. The answer to that sales ledger control, 210,550. Well, that's the end of the question. So until next time, good night.